Greetings. Thanks for joining us here at AnsibleFest 2020. My name is Andreas Benakritis. I'm a Senior Principal Product Manager with the Ansible team, and we're going to talk about content. This is actually titled Ansible Automation Platform Technical Content Strategy, and we're going to be developing, publishing, and certifying collections. So we're going to have about a half hour, and we're going to have a little surprise at the end, and hopefully that'll be fun. Thanks. Let's get going. So before we start, what we want to do is make sure you get some context. And by context, I mean, let's make sure you understand why collections are important, why content is important. So if you haven't seen this yet, you should go actually take a look at Massimo Ferrari's talk. It actually was just before mine. So if you missed it, it will be on replay. So if you want to understand why content is important, please take a look at Massimo's section called Ansible Automation Platform Content Strategy, Use Case-Driven Automation. That will give you a really good idea of why content and collections are important. So take a look at that. This section is going to be a lot more about technical areas. So some of the things we're going to answer about, like, what exactly is Ansible content? What is an Ansible collection and how does it work? How are collections developed, published, and downloaded? And why is certification important? So again, we're going to be more of a developer track, more of a how around content, and hopefully this will give you a good primer on getting started with Ansible collections and content. So if you're not familiar, let's first talk about what actually is content. And actually, when we start talking about the Ansible Automation Platform, we talk about a lot of different pieces. It's come along quite a bit in the last few years. Before, it was just Ansible Command Line and Ansible Tower, right? That's all it usually was. And now, a couple years later, we have all these pieces and parts that actually make up the Ansible Automation Platform. So you still have Ansible Engine and Ansible Tower, but now you have all this other cool things around Ansible Cloud Services, around everything on cloud.redhat.com. That includes Automation Hub, Automation Services Catalog, and Automation Analytics. But also you have all kinds of good things around content. So the part here in red is what we're going to be focusing on is how do we actually enable Ansible content domains via content around these different areas. So we show here infrastructure, cloud, network, security. These are all kind of specific domains that each kind of have their own kind of like walled gardens. So that, sometimes the network team has their own setup, security team has theirs, the storage team has theirs, the Windows team has theirs, the cloud people have theirs, right? They all have, you can pretty much be siloed off, but they can each interoperate and talk to each other via Ansible. That's the nice thing about this, is that everyone, even if you're in different content domains, can still utilize Ansible across the domain. So again, what is actually content? The specific items are, this is what we'll talk about. When we talk about Ansible content, we talk about plugins, modules, roles, tests, documentation, and playbook snippets. These are all things, if you're familiar with Ansible, are already existing today, right? These are not new items, right? These have been around for a while. And there's actually more than that too, right? We don't talk about metadata or specific files that talk about like how to actually find things as part of Galaxy. So Ansible content typically has been kind of spread around. Plugins and modules have been in the distribution. Roles themselves have been in Ansible Galaxy. The tests have been separate. The documentation has been online, and the playbooks are actually written separately by the users. So this is the content, and you can kind of start to see where I'm headed with is that with all of this interest around content, we're actually seeing a little bit of growing pains in the community, right? So when we talk about Ansible growing pains, we talk about how is Ansible delivered as part of the larger ecosystem infrastructure for Ansible. A lot of people use Ansible. There are people that use Ansible, right? They consume Ansible. So we have the customer side, and we have the developer side, right? The people that actually create the content, they create the modules and plugins, and actually create the playbooks that utilize the modules, etc. So Ansible has really grown in the past 4 or 5 years, meteoric, right? Really, really, really strong growth to the point that it's actually could be stifling itself. So on the customer side, what we've seen is, there's definitely some support confusion. Not really sure, where to go for issues and pull requests, since everything is all in one. Like, is is the Cisco iOS module supported? Is the URI module supported? Is the specific thing, as part of is the Windows module supported? All of these things are located in the same place. We're not really sure where to file issues and pull requests. That being said, there's a need for stability for some foundational components. Now, the actual underlying Ansible executable is really needed to be rock solid. You don't want a lot of changes to the underlying, the SSH Python. You don't want a lot of changes to a lot of the SSH things and the Paramiko things, all the things under the hood. You want to keep those rock solid. But on the flip side, you want to have new module enablement. You want to be able to say, I want a newer version of the Cisco iOS module, right? That's exactly what you want to do. So you're customers at a place where they want stability, but they want the latest and greatest things. Now, from a developer standpoint, this is actually accentuated. This actually is shown really, really strong here, right? So you have a lot of open issues and pull requests. This is a lot, right? 4,300 open issues, 2,000 open pull requests. This shows the magnitude and how big the Ansible community has grown, but yet a lot of the things haven't been integrated, right? There's a bottleneck. There isn't this one size fits all approach for getting things into the distribution. It's not working, right? Why do some things go in quickly and some things don't? It's really difficult. So we actually need to we need to figure it out, right? How are we going to be able to do this, right? So if we show you from the actual how Ansible was prior to moving forward, Ansible itself was a giant monolithic distribution, right? So here's an example between Ansible 2.5 and 2.6 a few years ago. So everything was put in, everything is in one single GitHub, one giant project, and it is released around every 6 months. So if you have a bug or an improvement that you want introduced, you want to put in production, that has to wait, right? So, and first of all, it has to actually be included, right? So this fix or this feature request has to wait until the development feature freeze has happened in order for it to be released in the next minor release. So you can see where we're going, right? Giant monolithic giant monolithic distributions is really stifling flexibility and growth. So what do we do? So here's a few steps. We're going to go through a four-step plan here to get where we are today. So step one, the big problem here is you want to separate the Ansible executable from the actual content. And like we said before, you want to keep things rock solid. There's a lot of things you're going to be very, very low churn. And then you're going to have things that are going to have very high churn that you want as part of the Ansible content, right? So you're going to have something called Ansible Base. So this is new. Starting this year, we just actually released it. Ansible 2.10 Base is very, very, very slim, right? Compared to, say, Ansible 2.9 that has 4,000, 5,000 things inside of it. We've split this out where Ansible 2.10 Base only has about 300 plugins and modules as part of it. So it's very slim. This is actually made to become kind of the foundations for becoming more cloud native. That's what we're trying to move towards in containerization. What this means is Ansible content has to be separate, right? But how do we actually do this, right? Content itself has no real kind of schematic. Like I said before, content is a lot of different things. It's roles, it's modules, it's docs, it's all these things, and they all live everywhere. So the solution here is the Ansible Content Collection. So this is a standardized schema to organize and package Ansible content. So think of this as something that holds or contains all of these items, right? So it's an abstraction layer above roles, modules, plugins, and tests. So think of a collection that you'll have, and we'll show this to you in a couple slides, is a full directory structure that contains all of the content that you need to actually reference it in a playbook. So, which is great because now it's actually portable and flexible. When you actually build a collection, it ends up being a tarball, and then you can actually publish that to Ansible Galaxy or Automation Hub, which we'll talk about in a bit. Semantic versioning is really important because now that Ansible content is no longer part of an Ansible distribution, it will need its own versioning system. And the community has adopted a semantic versioning system for content so that you will understand what are major, minor, and patch releases for content. So this is the foundations for where we're moving forward. An Ansible content collection is the path forward and is going to be the standard for distributing content within the Ansible distribution. So what does it look like now that you have collections? We're moving towards releasing Ansible 2.10, and hopefully by the time you see this actually has happened. So 2.9, you will actually have everything on the truck there. The nice thing is now if you have an improvement or a bug fix, you can actually have that released asynchronously via a collection and published, which is great, right? So you don't have to wait you have to wait for Ansible 2.10 to actually have this included. So all of your fixes and all your features and all that can be released asynchronously, and then they can be rolled up as a convenience to the community distribution Ansible 2.10. So you're still going to have what you have in the end, right? Ansible 2.10 is still going to have the Ansible 2.10 community distribution is going to contain Ansible 2.10 base, and then all the content on top of it. So it's going to look and feel just like Ansible 2.10, but it's going to be in a different format. So what went where? So if you take a look at this, and if you understand kind of the source around where content was, you can see Ansible 2.9 had everything, right? The github.com Ansible was the one stop. Everything was built. Ansible 2.9 was basically just cut. A stake was put in the ground, and 2.9 was built from everything in Ansible. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated now that we have collections that are released asynchronously. Ansible 2.10, the distribution, now contains Ansible base, the very slimline executable and very, very few content items, and then actually brings in the collections from Ansible Galaxy. So you can see, although it gets a little bit more complicated, it's much more flexible. So if someone has a bug or feature request for a specific content item, if you have an Azure module that you want to actually file a bug against, that will actually be either in Ansible Collections GitHub or the vendor if it's certified. As it stands right now, it's in the, for example, the Azure collection is part of the Azure collection that Microsoft maintains. So it would be part of the Azure collection on GitHub. So the nice thing is that this actually provides a much more granularity and much more control to content owners and maintainers, right? So you won't have this backlog of pull requests and issues waiting on Red Hat or Ansible, right? Now all of this stuff is actually part of, this is all part of the actual maintainers of the actual collections have the keys to include things. So this is what the real power again of collections is, allowing the community to better police and maintain what actually goes into their collection. So I promised you, what is a directory structure? So this is when you actually install a collection, when you install the tarball, when you actually put this on, you're actually going to have this directory structure as part of when you actually install the tarball. This is going to be part of the, this is where, where it's going to be. When you actually install it, tarball explodes into this giant, this directory structure. So you start off with the galaxy.yaml. That's very, very important. This is the source data for the manifest.json. It also provides any, requirements or dependencies as part of the install. So if you have other collections that need to be installed in order for the actual collection to run, that will be located there. Then you have a plugins directory. This is where modules, lookup, filter, and connection plugins are. Again, modules, people don't know, maybe not know, is modules are actually plugins. So modules are part of the plugins directory. So if you're looking for the modules directory, you're going to have to go in the plugins directory first. If you have some roles, some Ansible roles that you want to distribute to utilize the modules or plugins, go ahead and use that. And then the test, this is what you use for sanity testing. The metadata is a new directory. This is where you have a runtime YAML. And for developers, runtime YAML is going to be very important. That's another really nice metadata. So if you're migrating from 2.9 to 2.10, The runtime.yaml is going to be really important for people to make sure that the collections run, that the playbooks run consistently from 2.9 to 2.10. So take a look at runtime.yaml if you're a developer. Local documentation and docs, and then playbooks. You'll have some playbook snippets, which will have some tasks. So this isn't full playbooks. This should be full playbook snippets. So this is your directory structure for collections. So step 2, build and create, do the collection, right? Now that you know what collections are, you can actually start building it, right? And so this is the TLDR version. We could actually expand on each one of these numbers into its own separate webinar or something like that. When you actually create, when you start to actually develop collections, these is kind of the steps you would do. Initialize a collection, and again, before you start, your gateway into the developing is the Ansible-Galaxy command at the command line, and you'll notice that if you say Ansible-Galaxy collection, when you put the collection word there, that will let it know that it's actually against the collection and not a role. So by default, still, Ansible Galaxy has been used for roles for a long time. So if you don't put the collection word there, it's going to assume that you're doing something against a role, right? So make sure you put Ansible-Galaxy collection, and then in it, we'll initialize it, and then you can do foo.bar, which is the name of the collection. Once you actually initialize it and you populate all the content, you can do sanity testing. That's a requirement for certification. So sanity testing is really important. You do that locally. Unit testing, integration testing is really important as well to take the next steps. It's not required for certification, but things that are Ansible maintained, things that we write, we actually have unit tests and integration tests. So really important. If you really are a hardcore developer and you want to make sure that your content is of top quality, you want to provide and integrate unit testing, integration tests. Once you have all this working, you can actually build the collection, and the build command will actually create a tarball. Right, it's going to create a tarball which can then be utilized to upload to Ansible Galaxy itself, or Automation Hub, which we'll talk about in one slide apparently. So once actually things are published, users can install them by connecting to Galaxy and pulling them down, and they'll install to a local directory. So that's the TLDR. If you want more information, check out the developer guide on Ansible's doc site, docs.ansible.com. The developer guide is awesome. You need to check that out. So we talked a little bit about distribution. So step 3, we talked about a collection. We talked about how to build and distribute a collection. So where do you put it? So these collections are, again, hinted at Ansible Galaxy and Automation Hub. Ansible Galaxy has been around for a while. This has been kind of the de facto place for distributing Ansible roles. It has been updated extended to leverage collections. So you can upload standalone roles still, but we want to make sure that that collections are the way of the future. So if you have roles, if you're a role developer, you should start thinking about moving those into collections and then publishing those to Galaxy. Ansible Galaxy is community supported. You can get this stuff today, right? Anyone can publish today, and folks can download today. It's the latest and greatest. It's it's the latest. It's the new hotness. It's the bleeding edge. That's where you go to get the stuff. Now, we have Ansible Automation Hub as part of a subscription. This is the other place where you can download content. And this is where certified, fully supported content from Red Hat and the partner is located. So this is where all the things where if you have an Ansible subscription and you have a license or a subscription from the partner, you have joint support. You can contact Red Hat directly first or the vendor first, and you'll get full support for those certified content modules, plugins, etc. for the collections. You'll start seeing in the future more access to advanced analytics. So large organizations that have multiple different teams automating with the platform using Tower, for example, we will start having information. There will be analytics provided to top-level IT administrators to let them know what are their people using, right? So you want to know what are people automating most, what modules, plugins are going to be used. This is actually going to be happening shortly. This will be included. So if you're a large organization and you want to put a little bit more compliance, or you want to keep tabs on what people are writing and using, this is going to happen very soon. And again, this is slow and steady. Ansible Automation Hub is going to become a one-stop for certified content, but for Ansible maintained and Red Hat content, we will be hosting content that will have longer life cycles, right? So think of content that will have much longer life cycles, maybe even 2 years, that will, you won't have to worry about breaking compatibility with a major release of content. You'll have the option to kind of subscribe to a kind of a long version, like an LTS or a 2-year version of a content stream. That's coming soon too with Automation Hub. So you can see the different types of, depending on what you're looking for, there are 2 different ways to get content from Ansible. So step 4, certification. This is extremely important. It's great that people can use content from Galaxy, but you're self-supported, you're on your own, you're utilizing the community. What collection certification means is that it's partner sponsored or Red Hat sponsored, right? If it's Red Hat content, and you're fully supported if you have issues, if you have security concerns, if you have problems utilizing them, you have a means to actually get help with these certified collections. And again, trusted for enterprises. I've spoke about this, longer life cycles for content as part of Automation Hub. This is the true value for certification, ensuring that you have, insurance, right? You're making sure that the content that you utilize we know it's mission critical, and it's you use it on many different endpoints across geos, across many different teams. Make sure you have the actual support behind the scenes to make sure that everything is going to work as it's supposed to be. We actually launched this at AnsibleFest last year. So less than 1 year later, we have over 50 certified collections. I think as of today, we have 53 collections over many different domains: infrastructure, cloud, network, security. We have Windows. We have all kinds of good stuff. We just announced Kubernetes, supported Kubernetes collection, and we're working there. So you'll see some of these names. They've been extremely helpful. They've been around for a while, and certified collections enable joint support via Red Hat and your major networking, cloud, security infrastructure vendors here listed. If you want a full list of full certified collections, you can head over to the actual, you just Google it. It's on our knowledge base. So top supported policies. If you just Google certified collections Ansible, you should get a list of all the latest and greatest up to date. Now, what's really awesome as part of these certified collections is there are collections that are Red Hat maintained. So there are collections that we as Red Hat write and maintain as part of that. So this is a good list, right? So you don't even have to, you just have to stay with Red Hat, and we are the trusted advisors for the content listed here. Now we actually have really good relationships with the vendors that are listed here as well. So if we have questions around the vendors' underlying infrastructure or foundational pieces, we can talk to them. But these are some maintained collections that we have written. And the most recent ones as part of AnsibleFest 2020 would be the Kubernetes.core collection, so managing Kubernetes natively, as well as a VMware collection for connecting to the VMware REST for vSphere 6 and newer. So these were just announced. Very, very cool. Take a look. These are all on Galaxy as well as Automation Hub. So again, don't worry if these are Red Hat maintained, but we have full commitment to the community, and our list have posted these to the community as well as to Automation Hub. So that's pretty much a crash course. And before I go, I know we're in the middle of a pandemic. I love cooking, and this is one of my recipes I wanted to share with you all as a gift for listening to the whole thing. This is a honey mustard chicken with pretzel crust. Love this. And I say, from living in the South in the US, please use Duke's mayonnaise. It is legit. So with that, I'm going to leave this up. We should have the PDFs so you can review this later. And I really appreciate you taking your time with us with AnsibleFest, and hope you have a really good rest of the time. And if you have any questions, feel free to chat with me in the chat box, or send a note out via the normal means for AnsibleFest. Thank you, take care, and bye-bye.